Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome. We are so glad that you're here. My name is Katie Gideon. I will be the on camera facilitator for this social. This is going to be the full week one of July for our weekly setup. So we're so glad that you're here. I want to give a huge shout out to my co facilitator, Maya, who you will see in the chat. We are glad to be here. We actually did the social yesterday, so it's kind of like now on that thread. So it's nice to see everyone this morning. Love seeing all of our returning socialers. Welcome. We're so glad to have you back. I do like the idea of PJs being the vibe for these socials because that's absolutely true. Because I'm the only one that's going to be on camera, you guys get to get comfy, you get to relax, roll out of bed, all the bed head, bring whatever coffee, tea, water that you're bringing that. Same thing with making sure you have your journal ready to go, any pens, pencils, sticky notes, stickers, all of the fun things to have. Love it. I'm loving the vibe. I love the like get out of bed vibe. Hopefully, I feel like I've kept the music a little bit of a lower tone, so I'm not too jarring that early in the morning as well. Oh, Courtney, there is a fine line between what is PJs and what is regular clothes these days, and I love it. So welcome. I saw that we had some maybe new people in here. So welcome if this is your first time. If you want to share with the larger group in the chat, make sure it is set to everyone. Hosts and panelists is the default, and it comes just to myself and Maya, which we're always willing to kind of answer questions there. But if you want to get kind of other people's opinions, participate there with the larger group, then maybe just double check that it's set to everyone. You can participate in as little or as much as you want. This usually, again, is kind of a overpowering sensory overload sometimes because you have me talking in the on the screen, you have the chat going, you have music that'll be playing, you have the slides that you're going to want to maybe take a look at, and you're also going to maybe wanting to be working on your journal. So there is no right or wrong way to participate in the socials, just as there is no right or wrong way to journal. So definitely, if I become too much, you can mute me. If the music becomes too much, you can mute it. If the examples are just not what you're looking for, you can ignore them. You can also turn the chat off and just sit and work because this next hour is yours for how you want to prepare for the week to come. So, as always, please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions, though we do like to talk about them. Not only Silk and Sonder products, but other things as well. We love stickers. Their destiny is to be stuck. Same thing with we know that a lot of folks like to connect on other apps. So feel free to do that. Just also know that it's not necessarily under this umbrella, but we just want to make sure that we are staying to the particular theme of why we're here, which is to set up our pages. And then, as always, Maya and I have some information, but most of it we will need to redirect to our headquarters team at customer care inquiries for hello@silkandsonder.com. And then, as always, Sonder Social are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well being, and decisions. I always like to end these on a little bit more of a positive and optimistic note, regardless of how I woke up this morning. So I always encourage you to do the same. But if you need to just set up some of those mental and emotional barriers, if you're just in a funk or you just can't quite shake it, we love to provide some of that extra support. We are the best set of accountability buddies that you can have. But at the same time, if you're feeling just not like this is your vibe for the moment, you can definitely catch up on the replay if you show up a little bit late, if you need to leave a little bit early. We welcome all of those thoughts and feelings, but we don't want them to kind of detract again from why we're here. So we are glad that you've come exactly as you are. And we are going to continue to dive into this month's theme of independence. And this one for sure is still a little tricky to me. And I think part of it is just because it's really hard to kind of turn it, in my opinion, to kind of a self-care component. I've been trying to struggle with it. I've been trying to kind of sort it out in my head of embracing the idea of independence, but not to the full-blown isolation of the like, I think of like kid independence of like, I can do it myself. Don't touch me, don't look at me, all of those things. Um, so I think it's one of those I'm having to kind of strike that delegation bound balance. I'm having to kind of acknowledge the like doing it yourself, but still being able to do yourself. So I think it also comes down a little bit to the like I always call it like the camping concept. I get asked like, do you know how to camp? The answer is yes. And then it's like, do you like to camp? The answer is no, I don't want to camp, but I still have those skill sets. So for me, I feel like that's kind of like independence. There are certain things that I don't want to do alone, but I have the skill sets to do it, and I am confident in that. So I think it's kind of again bringing in some of those ideas here. And I think this quote kind of encompasses that a little bit, where it's like, so then do it. You don't need permission. Plant your own gardens instead of waiting for someone to bring you flowers. I love flowers. I love getting flowers. I love when people think to bring me flowers. But if I want flowers for whatever day or reason, I will acquire said flowers. So that's kind of the independence component that I have been um, just kind of mulling over with the like the need to have, the want to have, the like to have. So it's one of those like I always want to embrace being able to, and I think it ties so well into purpose of like I definitely want to put my purpose in other things. You know, there are different variables that come to it, different milestones, different chapters. But at the end of the day, I am quite confident that I can spark my own purpose. I can still pull myself out of situations. And I think that's kind of where you can embrace and celebrate that with independence, but also find ways to kind of do that a little bit more. So, those are again my thoughts on independence. So we're going to roll into the independence mind map as well as the rosebud thorn exercise and then move into those weekly setup pages. So with the independence mind map, last month or last week we had the bonus mind map question, which was a mid-year check-in. Highly recommend checking that out because it was so good. There was just so much to absorb and consume. And I think that's another one of those of like, it's a big ask to kind of spin that. So I know I'm still kind of looking at it and thinking of it. And so we're going to set up our mind map for this month. There's going to be four specific areas, but we love the mind maps because it gives us an opportunity to explore and strengthen different facets of our independence. And so each prompt is going to encourage kind of reflection, helping to us understand some of those unique nuances to the paths that we're on. It kind of embracing the solitude, but I don't want to call it embracing the solitude because then now I feel like a very vicious villain that's like, you know, shrinking away from society to plot my next move. I think it's being comfortable maybe with some of the solitude or being able to choose to do things on your own because you don't want to miss out on them. Same thing with champion our own thoughts, setting up those boundaries, and even just saying no, which I think is a good concept in the summer. And then again, focusing a little bit more on that some of that self-reliance, the self-spark, those ideas. So you're going to take a blank page in your journal. It can be the last blank page. It can be a section that you're repurposing. And so you will have the four different sections. My example will be on the next slide, but we're going to explore to reflect on an area of your life when you felt pressured to conform to someone else's expectations or societal norms. This one I already know is a little tricky, and it's another kind of big lift on the kind of emotional reflection. So, how do you navigate the pressures, and in what ways did you assert your own desires or beliefs? If you haven't yet, what's one small step you can take this week to align your actions more closely with your authentic self, even if it feels uncomfortable? So, like I said, coming in hot for this kind of independence mind map as well. And I also have had a little bit of a spoiler alert of the weeks to come. And this is definitely going to be one of those really, I think, good topics, especially if you come to the socials, because we'll be able to see that in the chat. So the prompt I'm kind of loosely referring to as conforming. The first two points at the top here are the exact kind of verbiage from the previous slide. And then I've added other ideas to consider. And that is, were you able to maybe strike a balance between these by conforming, but still in your style? And then did you find other ways to adapt to these situations? And then have you found handling these situations easier or more challenging as you come across them? I think these are kind of next additional steps to kind of come up with the reflection. As I looked at this, I thought of two specific instances. just as a kid growing up and then, being in high school and trying to fit in with all of those particular crowds, particular expectations. I mean, I'm from Oklahoma. I had a fairly small school, the same people I went to school with, I started with in, middle school all the way up to high school. So we knew each other all very well. And so there were just certain things I learned to not really talk about. I played sports and I had friends that played sports, but I also played piano. And none of my friends really played piano. And so I felt like I missed out on a lot of things. And people kind of thought it was a little bit weird. I mean, granted, I loved piano. I still love the piano. So I'm glad that my parents encouraged me to continue to do it. But it just became something I didn't talk about anymore. I didn't talk about when I would have my piano lessons. I didn't talk about the recitals that we had or the competitions that I did. I just didn't talk about it with most of my friends. And I've now seen that a little bit in my later years of just not openly sharing kind of what I'm interested in, what I like doing, because I just never know what the expectation is. And I just assume that's going to make me weird. And you like try to bring in all of these conversations to like find middle ground. And then you realize you guys have nothing in common. So you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to leave it. And it's like you lead the conversation and I'll just smile and nod and ask polite questions. And then the other one is I was an officer in the Navy for 10 years. And so it was kind of, I learned how to conform to that kind of expectation, but still very much in my style. When I was going through the early trainings, I could never take myself too seriously. So the like thing I got in trouble with the most is that I was smiling or laughing at inappropriate times. So if I feel like if that's the worst that would come from it, I just was able to incorporate it into my style of leadership, my style of just interactions so that it didn't become unexpected, but I was still meeting all of those kind of conforming demands. But again, still doing it as my style. So, I had a pink pen that had black ink because why not? You found those like little ways to kind of add your spin on it to make it more authentic and honest. And I found success there, but it was certainly one of those, it took some while to navigating. And so I still say, like, I think it helped me compartmentalize. I had very, very different personalities in both places, but you could see some of the melding, which is what I appreciated. So I am going to stop talking and I will open up, obviously, the floor in the chat for your thoughts and feelings on this. And so, again, I know it's a little tricky just dealing with the societal norms and some of those things. So let's all take just a big collective deep breath. And I'm going to turn on some music and we'll continue the conversation in the chat. We'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Please feel free to continue answering the prompts, responding to it, having the conversation in the chat. Also, again, double check if you want to share with the larger chat group that it's set to everyone. But like I said, hosts and panelists, we are always available for those type of thoughts if you don't quite want to share it with everybody. But please continue to do so. Like I said, I always get really excited when I think the mind map prompts are going to kind of trigger really good discussion, because I think it is. It's always really enlightening, and I feel like I get to walk away from this with a little bit more knowledge, a little bit better understanding, because I did notice a little bit of the commonality there with the word expectations. So I think so much of kind of the conforming is dealt so much with expectations and that kind of idea, and I know it can be very, very ingrained in just personalities that we have, the family systems that we grew up in, the friend group that we have. And I know it is always a tricky, tricky thing to try and navigate. But I appreciate everyone's sharing in the honesty, but also in a kind manner, because I feel like, again, we flirt with that very, very tricky line of very different thoughts, very different goals, very different ideas on kind of that type of concept. But I do think these mind maps are going to be really, really impactful and really good points of amazing conversation outside of just the opportunity to reflect on this as individuals. So thank you everybody for sharing. Appreciate it. And don't worry, you have the entire week to continue to revisit this, because I also feel like there are so many different layers to this, and a lot of it is going to depend on kind of what type of attitude you're in. And I think I even saw someone was like they were going to maybe share this with others. This is certainly one of those I would be curious other people's thoughts on it as well, inside my kind of external Sonder fam, my outside of my Sonder fam life, because I think it is just a pretty powerful and amazing concept to be able to think about, talk about, especially dealing with the larger societal conforming expectations, all those things. So thank you everybody for sharing. So now we're going to move to page 30 in your July journal. These are going to be our rosebud thorn reflections. So still moving in the reflection vibe. And I really like this one as well, because I always like to get excited about the things that I accomplished or the things that make me happy. And then at the same time, I will always think of it in a duality concept of maybe I can then acknowledge maybe the not so bright points of the week, but I can see them all kind of as a full picture, and hoping that maybe the brighter spot, excuse me, will outshine that kind of darker spot. But I feel like it always makes me feel better, especially acknowledging that that may not have been my finest moment, or being able to acknowledge the things that maybe just aren't going so well, but being able to either pull some of that momentum into the next week, in a more positive light, or even just to give it its moment, acknowledge it, and then leave it in the past. So the rosebud thorn exercise, again, on page 30, that's where we highlight the rose, which is going to be a win, something that made you smile, something that made you happy. The bud is that something that you're excited about, something new, something to come, or maybe something that you just haven't quite figured out if it's going to be a rose, or if you've got, the thorn wall on your hands, to become, and if there's a way to kind of combat that a little bit or brace for the impact. Same thing with then bringing in the thorn. And I also think it's a good litmus test for, did you have a lot of thorns? Did you pick the thorniest of the thorns? Or is it kind of maybe just what has been the like closest thing to have happened? I'm always interested in kind of that trend for myself. Did I come up with the rose really quickly? Did I not come up with a rose, or was my rose a little bit mediocre compared to like all the other things? Because I was just in that negative mood where everything was going to have a thorn and it was going to be the thorniest of thorns. So for me in particular this week, the rose, I have fallen back down the Downton Abbey rabbit hole. I hadn't really seen all of the episodes. I remember seeing like a few of them. I watched the like full length feature, and now they're coming out with maybe the final of the final full length features. So I'm pretty excited to get back into that. I'm at the start of, I think, season 4. So again, watching it kind of beginning to end, and it's such a vibe. So really excited about that. That's one I highlight. The emerging opportunity, the bud, something that I'm looking forward to. I am starting a new book today. I finished my previous one, and so I'm excited. I always get excited about a new book, and sometimes again, the buds can be like big, lofty, big excitement things. I do have some things coming up. But really, like I said, the thing that I was most excited about today with that emerging opportunity is a new book. And then the thorn, I feel like is always something that it can, again, it can be the negative, it can be that dark spot, it can be something that didn't go so well, it can be a challenge, or just something that is taking up too much space in your, time, energy, effort, all of those things. And I'm going to get a little bit on my soapbox, but recycling. I'm an apartment building. There's a couple different flats, and we all have the same bin, trash room. And not only do they have different colored bins, they had written explanations of what goes in the bins. Then they've upgraded it to pictures. So now we have matching pictures of scenarios, and people still get it wrong. And it's like, huh. Well, of course, recycling is not going to be as effective or cost efficient if we can't even do it right and it's literally there. So I just went on that little like spiel of like ranting late last night when I was taking my stuff down there and just getting all bent out of shape about bins. So that's my soapbox on it. So that's where too much time, energy, and effort has been spent into this recycle thing. So I would love to hear your rosebud thorns if you wish to share in the chat, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I love in the socials because I feel like I get a really great insight into each and every one of your unique life, which I feel like is again that's the actual definition of Sonder is that people are living these very vivid, and amazing lives, and you get to interact with them in some capacity or not, and that it's just all invisibly existing around you. So this is that really wonderful like lens to see through each and every one of you. So I appreciate that, especially sharing. I feel like it's that fun little like weekly check-in with each and every one of you. So thank you everybody for sharing, but certainly want to acknowledge we had some amazing roses. I love that someone even had pointed out that they had so many roses. I love those weeks for people. But then also acknowledging that there were some tough things around jobs, as well as some medical issues, mental health issues on the thorn side. And again, loss is always prevalent, I feel like there in different capacities. But certainly want to celebrate all of those wins, but also acknowledge some of that extra thoughts, strength, and support as everyone navigates some of those thorns. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Sorry, one second. Whew, don't know why I'm choking. So thank you. We're now going to move over to those weekly planner pages. And so this is going to be page 32 and 33 in your July journal. And I feel like a little bit of a broken record, as I always recommend with the how to approach these pages because we know each week is going to be a little bit different. The summer, I fully, again, can't state it enough. I think the summer is as busy, if not busier, than the holiday seasons at the end of the year. And so it's really hard to say no, but it's also so much of your time is dedicated to other things, especially if you're an educator. Your routines have completely changed. If you have school age children, school age grandchildren, if you have college age kids, or again, the kind of just like vibe of vacation in general and the buzz of those things. So sometimes I think it's the best way to approach these pages is asking yourself, what do you need? And so I found this really great graphic of ask yourself, do I need to? And in my particular case, I definitely need to drink more water as I'm sitting here pseudo choking on the social. But then it's the idea of spend some time in nature. I saw that someone's thorn was a sunburn. So I feel like the sun is always a yes, but make sure you do it carefully. Do I need to switch off for a while? Do I need to get more rest? Do I need to speak with a friend? Do I need to check in with a friend? So I feel like this is a good little graphic of just that gentle reminder of what do you need this week. And maybe if you can kind of answer yourself or answer these questions throughout the week, you can kind of make adjustments as well as maybe provide some fundamental flexibility around those weekly pages. Because there is no right or wrong way to set these up, there is no right or wrong way to journal. Excuse me, there is no right or wrong way to do this as long as you're asking yourself, what do you need this week? Because sometimes what you need is exactly as written in the pages. Sometimes what you need is that reinforcement or that connection of the different sections to help provide that kind of forceful backup. Or sometimes what you need is a break from some of these sections, from some of these pages, from that kind of routine a little bit as well. So you have all of this opportunity to kind of take a little bit of ownership of the week, but also provide some flexible alternatives or even some of those ideas of how can I get through the week? And so we'll start at the top of page 32 with this week I want to feel. I always like to ask myself, how do I want to feel this time next week? I like to take that kind of manifestation. I like to have that end goal because I'm that obnoxious type A personality. So as I'm experiences the rose, the buds, and the thorns of the week, I still have an end goal to kind of bring me back to center, bring me back to a focus point. Oh, I know. I thought the love yourself the way mosquitoes love you. My mom was on a rampage last night about all the mosquitoes. So I sympathize. And sometimes how you want to feel this week is 1% better, 5% happier, 5% healthier. I need to be like 25 more percent hydrated. Maybe it's less of something, more of something. Maybe it's that sticker vibe. So you want to be relaxed, like this giraffe lounging on a beach towel. Maybe it's a definition, maybe it's a word, maybe it's specific definition of the word. I always now like to play with the like capital version of the word, aka the noun version versus the verb or the adverb, those type of things. Trying to work on that. I find it really interesting because sometimes that's the vibe I need. Maybe again, it's the I don't quite know how I want to feel, but if I put that little, again, my happy little otter is back that you guys, I did about summertime last time, where it's like, I don't know how I want to feel, but I want to be as happy as this little otter in a flower crown, and that's the vibe I'm going for. So I'm gonna put on a quick song. So I'd love to see some of that intentional optimism of how we want to feel either this time next week or this week we want to feel. And we'll see you soon. Okay, so now that we have an idea of maybe how we want to feel or how we want to feel this time next week, we can, in my the way the my style for this is I then like to build up some of that reinforcement with the weekly major three goals that will support the mental and emotional reminders that I need to give myself so that I can feel the way I want to feel this time next week, and then overlay those to-dos that maybe will impact my goals, but they'll probably most likely impact how I want to feel or how I am feeling. So I'm going to combine these two particular sections. And so these can be major three goals, minor goals. These can be three goals, two goals, one goal. Maybe you need a different goal for each day because your days look a little bit different. But you can embrace the categories. Monica just gave a good example of the categories: a home goal, a work goal, and a me goal. Maybe you want to do a mind, body, soul. Maybe it's embracing an alliteration, or maybe these are just the three big things you want to accomplish this week. You can then connect those two sections with the three big goals, or the three goals that you want to do, and then overlay those to dos. And they can be in a particular format. They can be that traditional to do list or some of those other things. So you can kind of combine these sections to provide that additional support. Maybe it's embracing the fog, fun, and fierce idea, which is again just a recategorization of some of those goals or some of those ideas. Maybe you want to embrace some of the affirmations or some of those kind of ideas, definitions there. Or even it's just the positive intentions, kind of the larger thing. Or again, like I said, these are just the three big things that you want to accomplish. And then we've got the weekly to-dos, which yes, I definitely rested yesterday. So my to-do list from yesterday is now the to-do list for today. And I always like tongue-in-cheek acknowledge that a lot of my to-dos get copied and pasted because that's the vibe sometimes. But I have had to embrace, I'm more of a to-da person, which is I have my list of things that I want to accomplish and then I celebrate afterwards. But I've been experiencing some decision-making fatigue on the to-do and to-do list side. So I've had to really double down on the Eisenhower matrix, which I find really helpful with the do, decide, delegate, and delete. And I've been really leaning heavily into the delegation, but also that I feel like is again maybe why I can't quite wrap my head around independence because I've had to embrace the delegation a little bit more just because I'm tired of having to make all of the decisions myself. And again, I never delete anything, I just delay it. So that's again that kind of like little bit of an internal battle at the moment of like trying to embrace the theme, but also just tired of having to be the independent individual that I currently have been. So that's just the current vibe. And so maybe you want to incorporate that Eisenhower matrix, which is again just the recategorization of those to-do lists. Maybe it's embracing the bingo board to gamify some of that. Also, maybe it's just breaking down, here are the things that I need to do, here are the things that I want to do. Maybe you want to put your to-dos on your meal plan instead in a different section. Maybe you want to break them down again to those specific goals that you had with the work goal, a personal goal, and the needs and the wants. Or maybe you just want to focus on the to be's because you're on vacation and that's the vibe. Maybe it's focusing a little bit more on those weekly wins, and maybe it's the gentle reminder of some of those things not to do. And maybe that can help with that kind of independence goal as you kind of move forward to that. And then I'm going to give you some time to work on this, and we will see you soon. Thank you for sharing. And so now that we have established kind of how we want to feel this week with those goals that are then supported by some of those to-dos, or maybe the time is now split between the to-dos and the goals, we are now going to bring in that last element, which is those habits and activities. So this is again, bottom of page 32, and the habities. I have really tried to embrace, I am a creature of habit. So I have now started embracing the habits and activities more as like a celebration or accounting for the three things that I want to do every single day and how much realistically I can devote to them. As I had mentioned, I was on just like a necessity component last week where I was doing the bare minimum because I was really busy, pulled in a lot of different directions, a lot of responsibilities. Whereas this week I have a little bit of a lighter week. So that means I do get to account for a little bit more of those three things, which is move, read, and journal every day. So I add the lens of reality over these habits and activities. And I think it's a great way to kind of include that or celebrate that or set some of those boundaries. But it's also a great way to establish new routines, try out new routines, and kind of help support some of those larger goals. And you can either set goals with that, you can use all 5 lines, or you can use less than that. Again, maybe you want to do a little bit of a refresh or a reset, kind of that idea. Those are incorporated. I have the 5 days to schedule every month. Last week, it was a learning kind of week that I incorporated because I got a little bit behind on some school stuff. And so this is going to be a little bit of a reset week for me. And that's just because I need to go back and do some organization on just like email inboxes, the kind of less than fun stuff, but the stuff that's really been just like in the back of my mind nagging me. So I'm embracing the reset concept here, not only just in general of like work, but also personally. And then I like the idea of, your habits and activities may look different during the traditional weekdays, the work week versus the weekends. And again, sometimes it's on the vacation. I don't track my habits and activities when I'm on vacation or when I have people visiting. I just want to be a little bit more present. But maybe that is actually what you need this week because you're like the chaos. I'm out of my routine. I need to double down on focusing this. Or I also think it's a great way to help yourself, kind of in the Hansel and Gretel mantra with providing some breadcrumbs, especially if you want to reconnect with your journal. You can include the habits and activities as a journal focused one. So maybe one of your habits and activities is going to be the dailies, and that can be the daily rituals, the daily affirmation, the daily prompt. Maybe it is checking in with your intentions. Maybe it's checking in with your mood tracker, your habit tracker, your gratitude log. Maybe you've repurposed pages with another bingo or some of those things. So you can certainly use this section to help support maybe your journal routine a little bit. So I love the fact that you can turn this habit and activity suggestion either into like larger habits and activities like that you like to do, or you can focus in on the habits and activities that will support a very specific goal. And y'all know I am a sucker for iconography. So embracing a little bit of the independence idea. So I found this really great graphic with the summer solo date ideas. And I feel like, again, it's not is that what you can be, how you choose to do it, how you define it. But if you need a little bit inspiration on that, maybe those kind of small steps to independence, I thought this was a fun way to do it. Same thing with, I'm a sucker for incorporating kind of the sustainable July produce, or I have one every month for what is considered sustainable or in season on the produce front. And I love this type of transition as we go from kind of summer to the later summer because it's like that really lovely balance between fruits and vegetables. So I feel like it's always a way to kind of inspire incorporating some of that. I am a absolute sucker for cucumbers. And so I always like to incorporate a little bit more of this. And I always think of my parents with tomato season because they love BLTs. Not a BLT fan, but like I said, every time I see a tomato, I always judge the size of it and whether it would be great for my parents' BLTs. And then I thought this one was also fun, the dopamine challenge, because today, dance around like nobody's watching. You can incorporate some of these into those habits and activities or bingos. So you can dance around like nobody's watching. Tomorrow being the 7th, do something you've been avoiding, which I feel like is a great inspiration on that to-do list. So this is the frog day for tomorrow. So incorporating some of those. And same thing with the really fun July bucket list as I repurpose my expense tracker as a bucket and adventure list, and I incorporate some of these little things. And so much of it are things that we're already doing. If you make a charcuterie board, the new fashion term for that is girl dinner. So it's a way to kind of accomplish and balance out some of those to-dos and adding purpose and confidence into productivity, which we know we don't need to do, but I've mentally kind of made those shifts in my head. I feel a little bit more confident when I can call it something. on a bucket list or an adventure list, and that gets added to my to-do list. So I'm far more accomplished than I think I am. So I'm going to give you some time to work on these habits and activities, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I realized I have been talking a lot and we still have page 33 to do. So I'm going to combine these sections, which I normally do anyway. This is certainly the like repurpose section. And I think it's a great, it's got some really, really great templates here, but it's certainly not something that I use on a regular basis. You can use the meal plan exactly as listed. You can use it to pre-plan, or you can do it in real time as kind of one of those trackers. Maybe this is where your one good thing is. Maybe this is the to-do list. Maybe this is more of your kind of meal plan for the soul. So it's a focus on prompts, daily doodles, mental check-ins, kind of those type of ideas. The daily affirmations. I always use this. This is my staple for any type of travel that I do, be it vacation or work travel. This is my wardrobe and kind of packing list. I love the format for this, for that. I think it's great. The mind body health plan is another one of those sections that you can either pre-plan or you can do in real time for what you've done for your mind, body, and health. I like the mental check-in with the this is what I am feeling, so this is what I need. It's a consistent theme, asking myself what I need on a regular basis to the point of now I do it out loud. So you probably would come across me talking to myself because I'm trying to debate with myself what do I need based on what I'm feeling. You can also include maybe your bucket list here. Maybe you want to embrace the 7 types of rest, or this is where kind of those prompt inspirations are. I have these graphics that we'll come back to with the things that you can control and the things that you can't control. And again, I'm a big fan of affirmations. So it's the who needs to hear this today. So you can always incorporate that as more of the like mental check-in or the mental clarity there. And then the shopping list is another one of those that can be repurposed. It can go hand in hand with the meal plan. I use the shopping list for that clothing and packing list because these are the accessories that I need to bring. And that's, the adapters, the chargers, the business cards if it's work related. So including some of those things there. But this can also be where your bingo board is. If you have a theme for the bingo boards, we love a good bingo board. Maybe these are the gentle and emotional reminders. Maybe you want to check in with your village in that capacity. Because, like I said, if it's chaotic for all of us, it's probably chaotic for some of our friends and families. So maybe a special spot to kind of check in with people there. Same thing with additional quotes, affirmations, stickers. They love to hang out here as well. So I'm going to play one more song as we wrap up, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And we have that very last section on page 33, which is the I'm loving. This is a great place to put something that's making you smile, making you happy, as just the kind of shout out into the world of the things that are building kind of the roses and those things. I think it's a great way to kind of close out the page here. So feel free to throw in the chat the things that you are currently loving. And then, as always, we have reached the end. And again, I apologize if my rushing made you all feel rushed because that's never the case. I just was on a roll. But as always, we would love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. You guys provide such amazing inspiration with all of your pages. So if you want to share them there, we would love to see them. We would love to cheer about them. We'd love to get inspiration from them. We have also extended, due to popular demand, the risk-free 14-day trial of Jenny, the AI personal coaching tool. That's amazing. There are definitely some other YouTube videos showing how you can use it. We know people are a big fan. Meha is so excited with the response that we've seen there. We also have incorporated the text to speak journaling prompt option with Jenny. So this is that feature in there. If you have any issues with it, please let us know. Email the team at concierge@silkandsonder.com. We also have announced the July exclusive, which is that paid event. So if you go to Eventbrite, there are two different categories. There's a collections category and an events category. So just make sure you double check on those because the collections are the exclusive events that are upcoming and the events are the regular ones there. So just double check that on the Eventbrite app. And then, as always, here's a copy of my playlist. I will include the link in the chat. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. I am excited to tackle July. I am excited for the week to come. I have appreciated each and every one of you here. We hope to see you at a future event. You guys are going to have an amazing rest of your day, an amazing rest of the week, and we will see you again soon. Bye.
Take a look at me, get the picture fixed in your memory.